All right. Hello, everybody. It is great to have you here. I'll speak just for a few seconds, kind of slowly, because I see we have participants still joining. But welcome to the Art Gallery of Ontario's virtual senior social program. We have a really fun and special session planned for you today. You can probably see I'm here with two other folks associated with the AGO. So my name is Lauren Spring, and I'm an art educator with the AGO. And we have my colleague, also named Lauren.
I'm Lauren Manzetti, and I'm also an educator with the AGO.
And we have a very special guest. You can see we have Ed Pien himself, one of Canada's most interesting and important contemporary artists. And we are going to be talking about an exhibit at the AGO right now that Ed Pien developed. And we're so lucky to have him here. You can see he's en route right now to make more art in the north. Do you want to say hello there, Ed?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating, and I'd like to thank the HGO for hosting this. I'll be maybe going in and out. I'm in a car, so it's a little bit difficult to hear everything, but I'm gonna try my best to engage.
Thank you, Ed. And we're so glad that you're here, and we'll take you in any form we can have you be part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Uh, so some of you, I recognize some familiar names. So I know some know how senior social works. Others might be new to the program. So the way that it works is we have an hour together. And for the first half, we look at some art from our collection. And so today we're going to be looking at a few different pieces from Ed Pien's new exhibition that is called Present, Past, Future. And it's just such a great show. And there's so many themes. It's about time and age and identity and 10 million other things that we probably won't have time to discuss at all. But really special. And so we're going to focus on a few of those images from the exhibition. And then during the second half, we're inspired by what we see, the art that we've looked at, and then we create some of our own work too, using those techniques and those themes and yeah, generally whatever has inspired you. So that's the way it works. As some of you are already doing, I can see you're typing into the chat. That's great. You're more than welcome. This is a really conversational kind of social event. And so you're more than welcome to unmute yourself at any point and ask a question or, share your perspective on whatever we're talking about. And then, of course, you can also do so in the chat if you'd rather participate that way. So here is a photograph of the Art Gallery of Ontario, located in downtown Toronto, right on Dundas Street. And we house over 90,000 works of art in our collection. And so those are constantly rotating. There's always something new to see. Ed Pien's exhibit is on up until the new year, so you still have some time. It's been here for a few months already, and it'll still be on, throughout the winter holidays and into the new year.
Sorry, I think it's until next June. It's a year. Well,
It's
I don't
on.
know. Yeah, I don't know the exact end date, but it's around June sometime.
Perfect. So you still have this will kind of whet your appetite, and then you still have many months to be able to see it again, which is wonderful. And I'll also just note that the land the AGO is on is Mishi Sagig Nishnawbe territory, Mississauga. It is also governed by a treaty between the Mississauga of the Credit and the Canadian government. Toronto is Mishi Sagig Nishnawbe territory. It has also been occupied by other Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat Confederacies. Okay, so let's jump right in to speaking about Ed Pien's exhibition. So maybe I'll share a few words, and then Ed, you're welcome to jump in at any point if you want to add, and I'm sure folks will have questions for you too.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, this is a really special exhibition. So it is called Present, Past, Future. And so certainly a bit of a meditation on time. It's mostly situated in Cuba, so in San Agustin, which is a town not too far from Havana in Cuba. And for this project, Ed has been working very closely with 13 elders in that town. And this project started in 2014. And over these years, I guess with a brief interruption for in person visits during the pandemic, over these years, Ed has been visiting these folks every couple of months. I think every 4 to 6 months or so, right, Ed?
Yes, I'm going back next Sunday again. I've been there 3 times this year already.
Wow. And so this is just so, it's such a unique project. And if you visit the exhibition, you'll see there's photography and there's film and there's furniture. There's a really, really interesting furniture kind of installation that's a big part of this. And of course, as you can hear, Ed's been developing relationships with these folks for a long, long time and has gotten to know them quite well. And the idea of the project is that this will continue essentially until they die or until some participants decide they no longer want to be part of this project for whatever reason.
Or when I
Um,
die.
or I suppose that's true too. Yeah, that's also a possibility. Um, and so obviously in this time, yeah, have gotten to know each other really well. And you'll see that Ed has been very deliberate about different types of photographs and locations and some of the themes he's working with, but also the process and the individuals have altered things and he's been open to sort of, adapting initial ideas according to their needs and their personalities and everything there. Do you want to say anything about in general about the exhibit before we take a closer look at this particular diptych, Ed?
Well, it's 8 years in the making, and so I've had plenty of time to really think about what to present and how to present the work. So I'm really grateful for the time that's allowing this to unfold. Um, so I went there without any idea of what I'd be doing, except that I would be asking these elders some questions about time. So it's pretty straightforward initially, but based on their responses and based on my engagement with them, other things started to develop, including the real time videos, the 2 channel videos, which involves music, the photographs. The photographs are important because, in a way, it was for me to enter into their past by having something that's tangible that they can use as reference to recall a moment that's has been passed by. So here, for instance, with Barroso's photographs, you can see that he was an army soldier and he fought in the Angola War. Well, he didn't exactly fight, but he was the provider of all the materials, the food, the supplies. So it's a very important and necessary job that he was very proud to embark on. Uh, so in this installation, there's also furniture, which is inspired by the domestic sense of their lives and also by other reasons. And there's also a video that's quite large in the darkened space. You can watch the entire video interviews with them. And also interspersed with the interviews, there are videos of people's interiors. These are done as a way to honor the people who have passed on. So those videos are called double absences. They were shot with their permission when they're not inside their apartment, and they're only shown when these people have passed away. They're absent from the world, and hence the title double absences.
Yeah, that's such a neat point, Ed. That yeah, and because this project has been ongoing already, some participants have passed away. Um,
Yes, yes, very tragic for me. I mean, for their family, it's just very sad in the sense that we cannot continue with our conversation, which I find so meaningful and rewarding.
yeah, and yet you found ways aesthetically to kind of keep a lot of this going too. That's really powerful, and we have some examples too. So why don't we open this up to the bigger group here and let's take a look at this particular diptych. So when we have these, in this case, there's actually kind of 3 photographs in one art piece here. But when we have these kind of diptychs that in some ways juxtapose against each other, let's just look aesthetically at what we see going on here. And so anything that folks notice, you can type into the chat, you can unmute yourself. What strikes you when you look at this particular image? Anything at all?
I like the juxtaposition between the black photograph, this black and white, and the color that's surrounding this person, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful, right? And we have this bright pink, right, that we tend to associate with kind of excitement, life, contemporary art, and at the same time, yeah, this very old photo. So something about time here. Oh yeah, in the chat, because saying yeah, it's a fragment of a photo. That's a great point too. This isn't even a full, photo in a frame. This is one that's clearly been well loved and folded up. And yeah, you wonder what was maybe just beneath or on the side here. Susan is saying the pride in the man's posture. Yeah. And then and Ashley here that the middle is kind of blurry. So Ed, you've done something really interesting here with deciding what to focus on and
That's
what
right.
to sort of make fuzzy.
Right. Well, in a way, I'm trying to foreground, but also his past. That's the time period he wishes he could relive if he had the chance, because that was the time when he felt really useful, that life had more meaning for him, and so he took pride in being able to help other people, and he still wants to help socially in his country and in his neighborhood. So here, the photograph is larger and is more in focus to suggest that time of his life meant so much to him.
And I'm curious, maybe that's a great idea for us to focus on too. I'd be really curious to know from participants, if Ed were to be interviewing you and he were to say, okay, what point in your life, you may or may not have a photograph of it, but what point in your life are you sort of most you, or did you feel most the person that you want to be, kind of thing? I'm curious what folks would say. I'm going to reflect on that too because I think it's a really good question. Yeah, but if you were part of this project, what point in your life would you want Ed to know about you and what you were doing, what you looked like, how you felt?
Okay.
Oh yeah, we've got a hand up over here.
Yeah, I was thinking because this is a seniors group, I think it's kind of nostalgic for all of us because we had a completely different type of life before we were seniors, and this is after now. And it's the same sort of thing, you have such a vibrant, dynamic life when you're younger. It's so promising. And then, it kind of fades away. And you kind of look back at it and you wish you were still doing that.
I think that's a really poetic response, Susan. Thank you. And it's bizarre because I think most older adults they still have so much to offer, of course, right? And that experience can bring so much, and it's sort of bizarre that in our culture we don't value that in ways that other cultures do, or in ways that we really ought to.
Right.
I see another hand here. Someone in red. I can't see your name, but someone wearing red.
Oh, that's is that me you're talking about, Priyanka? My name
Bianca, whenever you speak, your name shows up. Thanks,
Okay.
Bianca.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I mean, I just going back to the diptych, this conversation was good talking about. I think for me, the striking part is, the uniform and the non-uniform part, the same person wearing a uniform and being like the professional and personal lives. I mean, I know that my father, that I lost last year, God bless him. He used to be a banker, but nonetheless, in his personal life after his retirement, there were some traces of his professional behavior that would we would see. And it's obviously not the same as that he was in his professional space, but I'm sure that he missed it. And in some spaces he would get irritated, um, expect certain things that he got from his professional space. And it's much later that I realized that he probably missed a lot of his power and giving to the society and whatnot, right? I think this just takes me back to the idea of people. And I also wonder what I would become, um when I reach certain age. So that's very, very striking for me. And I always just like Gautam Buddha would be scared about the old age, and for which he wanted to attain the nirvana state. That's it gets me wondering as well. So this is beautiful, and it's brilliant. Thank you, Ed, for bringing the concept. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story.
It's so striking, Priyanka, what you're saying about the body, right? Someone had noted, yeah, the kind of pride, and you see the body then and now, and it's remarkable to think with all of us, our hands are the same as when we're 3 years old. And what you're saying too about the work we do, what we contribute to the world, how that lives on in us even if the job ends. And especially with military folks, I've done some work with military folks too, and you can see years after they retire from the military, there's a way of crossing a street or opening a door that those kind of things stay in the body and in the mind too, like you're saying about your dad with his banking career. There's just remnants of that remained. We have some beautiful comments here in the chat too. Some folks saying, it's really highlights of their career that stand out, even though they're retired now. Others, Linda here is taking a bit of a different stance, saying that now that she's retired, she can finally focus on her art, and that she's feeling more like herself now than ever before in her life. So that's really interesting too, huh? That we are a bit work obsessed in our culture, and sometimes that help folks identify, and other times being a little bit free from that or on the other side of that capitalist paradigm is where you can come into your true self. And Mika here is saying, my mother is 101, and I'm in the process of going through old photographs. I've wondered what she may have been thinking, feeling at certain times in her life. There's something to it. I don't know if, you must feel this as a photographer, but there's something so refreshing about old photographs that were not digital, that, the person didn't know what they looked like right away or could delete it or not. They just, they were more rare, and you might get glimpses of who they were with different facial expressions that they wouldn't necessarily have wanted to identify with, or might have been a bit awkward for them. But
Right. And the photograph that Barroso has, you can see, and you use the word love, and it's true because it feels like it's been handled many times. And this fragility also kind of references our memory, how fragile it is. Things come and go, and we start to forget a lot of the details. So that material base of this photograph really speaks volumes compared to a digital photography.
I think Dale wants to say something.
Yeah, hi. Ed, I loved your work. I recommended to many people to go and see it. I
Thank you so much.
especially love the videos. But in looking at the picture that you're showing now, I think where you're showing the black and white is when you're young and life seems so clear and black and white, and you have in your mind a destiny, and you're going to do this, and then the center part is a blur where you're still trying to figure it out. You're fumbling through life. You haven't quite got on the path you thought you were going to be on. And then the end is when you're older and you're kind of resigned to the fact that you are aging and you can't necessarily go back, and people only see you as the old person, especially new people in your life. They've never seen you in your youth. They all go, wow, that's you when you were young, right? Because they only see you as the old person with gray hair.
That's right.
And that you didn't have a previous life. And like Linda, I'm also finding I was so involved in my work that I didn't get to do any of the fun projects and now I'm embracing it all. My kids are like, what? And I'm like, I've got to cut down on my social life. I'm so busy, right? So it goes like it's full circle in many ways. And now I'm clearer again about what I want to do. Thanks again.
Thank you. I would like to share with you, in Habana, I have a neighbor. She's 93 years old. So this past April, she wanted to visit me. So she lives upstairs. She came down with a whole bunch of photographs, including one when she was like 4 years old and when she was in her 20s and 30s. So because of that, I could not see her as only this 93-year-old, which is, I think it's beautiful to be able to, I guess, using photograph as a way to try to get a fuller scope of what this person is. So she is a sum total of all these people. So it is in a way, not I don't know what the word is, but I'm happy that when she was able to show me the progressively getting older kind of series of photographs. It was beautiful.
And Dale, I love the way that you framed this as kind of like a narrative, right? Like starting, when things are black and white, because when you're young, it's so easy to think, well, it's easy. There's this, right and wrong. And then all of a sudden, all the nuance comes in. And that's a big part, I think, of of adulthood is seeing those more gray areas, the brighter colors that leak in, and everything is muddled. And then, eventually maybe, yeah, do settle in with some clarity on what your values are, how to weigh what's right and wrong, and what is, totally in between. So yeah, I love the way you saw this. It's almost like a life course aesthetically.
Mm.
Okay, let's take a look at another diptych photograph we have here. This is Dion, another participant in Ed's project. And this one, Ed, and of course, feel free to chime in, but I remember one of the things you shared with me when we were initially talking about this was how interesting it was for you to observe folks in their domestic space because you got to know them so well. You were almost a bit of a fly on the wall. You could get a sense of what they were like on their own. And then as they're preparing to go out and present themselves to the world in this, exterior space.
No, it's true. It's one of the things that's really been helpful is just knowing people for such a long period of time. So when I'm there, it's just very comfortable and familiar. So they just do whatever they do. Sometimes Dione or Clementina, she would show up for the interview without her dentures even. She just feels so comfortable with that. That's the way it is.
And I wonder, Ed, I mean, it's one of the things I'm sure, didn't anticipate at the start of the project, but I feel like the pandemic has blurred those lines for a lot of us too, between like the public and private space. I mean, here we are, a lot of us moving from domestic spaces that, in the work world, folks didn't really have access to before. And I don't know, I feel like that's just such an interesting theme that you picked up on, even pre-pandemic. And here we are, this like public-private versions of ourselves that it's become a little bit muddied over the past couple of years. And
I also have when I go to interview, I also bring a photographer and he's my videographer as well. So we share taking pictures. So the previous two with Barroso, I took, and these two Claudio took. And this is the one on the left is one of the more powerful images in my collection of photographs that have been taken. But what I want to add is I cannot go forward without my translator, my guide, my videographer, my editors. There are a lot of people behind this project making it possible. So they all work pretty hard. They're all completely dedicated to this project, and some have been with me since the beginning. So I'm really, really grateful for their participation and help.
well, and I think that's a key point too, Ed, that this project is based in a particular place. Certainly it would have been easier for you to do a similar project, say with folks in Montreal or, somewhere where you could easily get to every couple of weeks and a month.
That's right.
And didn't require translation and other things. How did you decide to focus on this community?
I was invited by an independent curator, Catherine. At the time, she was working on several projects in Cuba, and she had gotten funding to create a project that deals with that's called confronting the faces of the other or the voices of the other. So she thought my work would be interesting because I make these really kind of monstrous and grotesque figures, and she thought that the Cubans, some of them believed in Santeria, which is a kind of religion with many different deities with fantastical images. So that's how it began. In fact, initially when I was invited to participate, I declined because I said I don't speak Spanish, I don't know Cuba, I don't want to be a tourist artist. But different things happened in my life that allowed me to go back to Catherine and said I'd like to go back and work. I like to go and work with a small group of elders, and we would explore the idea of time over time. So the idea is also that it's not just about time, what time tells us, but also how people are impacted by time. So over the course of the 8 years, I've seen many, many changes, obviously, including some of them passing away.
Yeah, and then also, given the geographical location, all of these folks would have lived through the Cuban Revolution as well. So that was sort of
Right.
common in their background that you didn't necessarily address outright, but that existed, right?
Right. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, the politics is very complicated, and I try not to ask anything that's so very political, even though just by me being there and asking them about their daily lives, politics can be separated from that. So things do come up once in a while. They are all supporters of Fidel, obviously, because they went through the revolution. And prior to the revolution, many of them were very, very poverty stricken to the point of starvation. So they welcome the change, even though Cuba is ongoing in terms of its lack of supplies and food. They remain staunchly faithful to the country and to the cause.
That's actually a great segue into the next picture here. So this here is Gladys, and Ed was just mentioning, yeah, sort of I suppose the material conditions of a lot of folks within Cuba. And Gladys, I just find photos of her and videos of her so striking. She's someone who really invests a lot of meaning in objects she has. I mean, they all do to a certain extent. But I believe that she really liked dolls, right? And she had a lot of kind of little trinkets and figurines like this.
Yes, she loves chachkas, and most Cubans do, even though there aren't hardly any objects around for them to collect. They try to amass as much as they can.
And in the video of Gladys too, where you mentioned at some point how she does have this history, you know, of war and revolution, but she also, you would, you know, walk in on her sometimes and she'd be watching these cartoons.
That's right.
And so for her, there's this really interesting kind of fantasy world mixed
That's
with
right.
trauma and
That's right.
yeah.
Well,
And
sorry, I just want to add that when I first started interviewing her and asking about photographs of her when she was really young, the first thing she talked about was how when she was a child, her mother used to read the 1001 Arabian Nights to her. So I just thought that was amazing because it's all about different fantastical stories. And here in the present moment, she loves cartoons and she's always watching cartoons when she's at home.
that's so funny. And I mean, one of the things too that comes from her and others in the project are kind of what folks do that they identify as being them. And so you did a series of videos with people, and they got to choose an action, right? So some people wanted to be in their garden, other people wanted to be smoking a cigar,
That's
um,
right.
that kind of thing. And I'm curious. This is another question I have for the wider group. Again, if you were to be part of Ed's project right now and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this video and I want to show you kind of in your element, like doing something that's very you," what would it be? What would you choose to have displayed in this video?
Right. Very good question.
Mhm.
I had to think about that too for myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have an answer to that one, Ed?
Maybe jogging through a forest.
I like that one. How about other folks? What is like, you know, quintessentially you that Ed could capture on video?
Well, part of the challenge too is if it's something like I really love to read, but that would be a really, really boring video, you know. So
Or read out loud.
yeah, well, reading out loud, that's fair. We're doing actions with it.
Mhm.
And Linda here in the chat is saying, "I used to be a bodybuilder, maybe
Oh.
lift weights."
Okay.
Ooh, that would be a thrilling video, Linda. You say you used to be, so I imagine that, you know, you haven't been practicing quite as much as you once did, but I would love to see that video. I think that'd be a really interesting meditation on time, and I'm sure your body and your muscles remember.
Yeah. Try to keep in shape. Just try to maintain some strength now.
That's a good idea.
We've got another hand here. Again, I can't see the name until you speak.
Brian.
A gentleman with Brian.
Yeah, hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Brian.
Ed. How are
Brian.
you?
Good.
So,
Thanks for
um,
joining in.
just a quick one. I used to be an architect. Don't know if you can see this, but this is a publication of my work, some of my work. And in terms of what I'd like to be seen as, is this old photograph of me at a drawing table
Well,
drawing, and that's what I do. Even to this day, this project was 30 years ago. Even now, I'm still this person
All right.
drawing in my desk here in front of the computer. I don't do work on computers. I do it all by hand, pencil, pen, whatever. And I'm always sketching. So that would be something that I would see myself in a video as doing.
Wonderful.
That's a
Okay.
great segue too. We're going to be drawing in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And thanks for sharing that, Brian. And
No problem.
what a neat job to have been part of, because buildings last a long time, and so that must be such an interesting thing to be able to walk places and see really what you designed and how people interact with it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's nothing quite as, I don't know, are you hearing me?
yeah.
There's nothing quite as marvelous for me as to walk into a building that I designed
Wow.
and
Yeah.
realize I'm in my head. It was in
Wow.
my head, and now it's in the world. It's the most
Beautiful.
amazing feeling.
And that other people are there,
Yeah.
over years and years, creating memories in those spaces that once only existed in your head, right?
I have a lovely story about a social housing project I did for seniors when I wasn't a senior. And this older resident on the day of opening looked me up and said, "Thank you so much for making this place. I've never had indoor plumbing before."
Wow.
Wow. That's life changing.
Good job remembering that.
It put me in my place.
We have a few comments here in the chat too. So Ellen is saying, I would be photographed at my laptop with a pen and notebook beside me to publicize my interest in teaching the writing of memoir to other older adults. Oh, that's a great vocation there, Ellen. Lovely. And Mika
Yes.
here saying, what I find fascinating is how the spirit of each individual is captured, not so much what they did. And I can relate to Brian, also an artist. And that's what's so nice, right? Because Ed, you ask folks, what they wanted to be shown doing, gardening, smoking a cigar, whatever. But it's so much bigger than that. They're not that action. When you see them in that action in the video, you do get a sense of that spirit, just like
Very
this
true.
thing.
Very
And then Ashley saying, I think of my mom being in the kitchen making wonderful dishes. That's like a nice full sensory memory there too. Oh, thanks, folks. I feel like I want to see Ed do a whole other project with all of you, so I can, can see all of these old photos you're unearthing and
Yeah.
your actions. So, in the interest of time, I think we'd better start to make some of our own art here. And Brian did give us that great segue. So I'll hand things over to my colleague, Lauren Renzetti now.
Hi there. Okay, so go to the next slide if you can, just so that people know what to have. So it'd be great to have some color. If you have markers or pencil crayons, pastels, I would say chalk is not a great thing for this particular project, but it can also just be a regular pen or pencil. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. We'll take a look at the slides and then we'll get started. So have paper and have some colored pencils or markers. Next slide. So for myself, one of the things that we try and segue in is how I, as a practicing artist, have something maybe related or slightly related to whatever the art of the month is. And so for myself, I don't actually do a lot of portraiture, but I did decide to do a pop art painting of my family from a photograph, and decided that they all needed to be looking either at each other or at the camera. And I did it in color because that's one of the things that I'm really keen on is how we perceive ourselves. If we could be any color, what could we be? And I'm not talking about skin color. I'm talking about the rainbow color, right? And so that's sort of what was going on with this one. Next slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of short activities, and one of them is going to be doing what's called a blind contour. Now, this is a little bit tricky since we're going to be on camera, and I'm hoping that all of you actually do that you actually show us your beautiful faces in whatever state they're in, because we're going to be drawing each other. And so we're going to be looking at the camera and not looking at our piece of paper. So here's some examples of people that I've drawn where I was not looking down. I was looking only at those individuals, and they were actually in front of me, not on a Zoom call. And one of the reasons why there's two colors is because if you're not looking down, you might not necessarily navigate the entire face. You might be missing something, or pupils or glasses or chin or hair or whatever. And so then you add those things in a second color to help just enhance the original drawing. And you'll notice that their eyes are maybe not in perfect positioning, but that they have some distinct qualities that show they are not all the same person. They're not just a happy face with eyes, nose, and mouth. They've got other details, wrinkles or glasses or jewelry or whatever. So what I'm going to ask you to do is have some paper and be willing. If I know that it makes you a bit vulnerable to show who you are as a face, but this is one of the things that I want you to be prepared for if you're willing. Next slide. And so these are, I'll admit, the first one on the left is a blind contour, and then I colored it in afterwards. The second one was a contour drawing in the sense that I was doing a continuous line and not leaving the pen off of the page, but I was looking in the mirror. And the third one, I'll admit, has absolutely no bearing in reality in terms of what my outer appearance is, but what I actually think of myself as in terms of perception. If I was going to be a Fauvist painter and I wanted to convey who I was and how I felt. And yes, I have much curlier hair than I have in reality. So what we're going to do is, if we can stop sharing the screen, and if you're willing to go into gallery view, and for those of you that are willing, it would be really great if you could show us your face. And what we're going to do is we're going to try drawing ourselves, and I'm going to
And just really quickly, let's just make sure everyone knows how to get into gallery view. If you go to the top right corner on your Zoom, there should be a little box that says view, and you click on that, and there's a few different options right there: speaker view and then gallery view. So if you click on gallery, ideally you should be able to see a whole gallery of our different faces here.
right.
So
Now, they might be too tiny, and if that's the case, what you can do is you can go into speaker view again, but I've switched my camera because I wanted to show you what I was doing. But what we're going to do is we're going to draw not ourselves, but somebody else. And I guess maybe what I can do is I can demonstrate with one. So maybe we'll switch back to speaker view just so that you can see it. I mean, I switched it to myself just so that I can see what I'm doing. Well, that's actually cheating, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want to cheat. All right, I'm going to put myself back on there as the view. And so what you're going to do is I think the challenge is to try and navigate your whole face without lifting your pen off of the page. And this exercise is something that the surrealists used to do as a party game. And it actually is a really great icebreaker if you're in a room full of people and you don't know them very well. Because the great equalizer is none of you are looking at the page. So none of you necessarily will have very good drawings. So the easiest way I find to navigate is I start with my eyes and try and get as much detail in as I can. And to be fair, I'm not drawing my glasses because that just totally screws me up. And then what happens is I work my way down my nose, through my mouth. Hard to do that and talk at the same time. And then work my way around my head. Okay, so this is what I've drawn. And it's not necessarily a complete picture because I actually don't have glasses and I certainly don't have hair. I got a bit of a shirt. And so what I would do is I might add in, yes, I have nostrils and yes, I have pupils, but I'm adding those in. And I am going to add in just a little bit more hair just so that I don't look quite so garish. But I've got, my eyes are in a pretty good spot. And then I will go ahead and put in my glasses just because I do think that that is something that I've had pretty much my whole life. And maybe kind of just saying what my mouth is doing. So it's not a correction, it's an addition. So we're going to try this and we're going to do a few. And if you do different colors for different people, it's okay if they all go on top of each other, because then you have this whole grouping of people. So, are you willing to try this out? I'm hoping that there's a yes in there, or a thumbs up. That would be great. And I'm going to put myself back into camera mode so that you have another face to try and draw. And if you want to, you can draw yourself. That's totally fine. Whatever works for you. And whatever color you think that person should be, that's totally a part of it too. But you're not lifting your pen up off the page, and you're not looking down. Okay. And and then once if you are done, then you can kind of get I like to use a darker color on top to just kind of not correct, but just give additions to maybe there was a little bit missing in that. And I can see people's names. And so I'm going to put the name of the people that I'm drawing underneath, because it's kind of fun. Okay. And to be fair, glasses, I tend to put glasses in after the fact, because they really are hard to navigate. All right. So I'm hoping that you're going to try maybe 3. Some of you might be faster and some of you might be slower. And there's no judgment here. Just to let you know, Picasso totally loved this exercise. And I don't know, but some of his paintings are worth millions of dollars. So, you might have a real gem there that just might be flamboyant and marvelous, because you're not necessarily thinking too much. It's a bit stream of consciousness. And you're just hoping and trusting that your hand is going to do what your eye is doing. So using your eye, really following the contours and the shapes of whatever that person has in terms of hair bands or glasses or wrinkles or other interesting elements. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is, if you're willing to hold up what you've got going on there, I'm going to switch myself into a different view so you can see what I did to keep it honest here. I was not. So I did Susan Ross, Ellen, and Lori Carney. And they're not bad. I mean, but they do look all different from each other. And I'm sorry, Susan, I'm sure you have a bigger brain than that, but it's the best I could do with what I was doing. And Laura, you've got okay, a bit more eyebrow than maybe you deserve. But so this is what we're going to try and do. So it would be really great if you'd be willing to share by holding up your image. And yes, so some people were asking, can I look at the picture when I'm adding things? So, okay. Oh, Brian's got some great people in there. Ooh, yeah. Catherine, I like what you've got going on there. Susan's got very tiny pictures, but I like what's happening with that. And Ellen, you could definitely add pupils in there, and then they would look less haunting. But Margaret, oh, you got 3 in. That's great. And Anne did quite a few too. And Dale, oh, I love that one. That's great. Oh, and Susan Ackrish, I love the feature, the face that's going on in there. And Carol and Catherine, you've got some really interesting. And Micah, just hold it up just a little bit more. It's there we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's better because the lighting was funny. Nice. So you can see, oh, and Parenka, I really like what you've got going on there. So some of you are quite accomplished, or you cheat, and both are fine because we don't know, right?
Lauren, we have two questions in the chat actually.
Okay.
One from Mika. Are they allowed to look at the paper when adding the second color? I think that was
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that you can kind of enhance and encourage it to be a little bit more humanoid. And how do you draw eyes, say, without lifting your pen? Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll put it, maybe if we can put it back into speaker view, I will draw with a totally different color here. And I'm going to just draw, let's see, whose face do I have in here? Okay. Lauren, I'll try and draw you. You're very tiny to me, but that's okay. And so I'm working with the eye. And so there is definitely a traveling thing that happens, right? In terms of creating the eye, the eyebrow. I kind of know where eyebrows go. I want to kind of I don't know what kind of eyebrows I'm drawing, but I think they're maybe a little bit furrier than they need to be. And then traveling down the nose. And depending on how you're viewing your computer, it might be that, you see a lot of nostril or not a lot of nostril. And then there's that little bit right below your nose. And then and she has I don't know if I can get the cheek on the other side, so I'm not going to try that. But she does have teeth. Oh, this is really, are they even in the right spot? I'm not even sure. Okay. And I'm going to put a cheek there. And then she's got quite long hair and okay, she doesn't have much. I'm sorry, you have no brain. All right. So it's just a question of thinking of yourself as a sort of a wire. Oh, okay. That really, you have a nicer chin than that, but you know what you do, right? So then it's a question of sort of adding in what you think would help enhance the fact that, she has no brain in my image. So I got to carve that in, right? And potentially the neck starts near the chin, near the ears. So what we're going to try now is we're going to try one where we're actually going to look at not just, it doesn't need to be someone else, it can be you. But one of the conversations that Ed and Lauren and I had was talking about Ed is taught in schools drawing. And one of the questions that he was asking his students is, what would you look like? Who would you be in perception if it was 30 or 40 years down the road? Now, in college and university, you're dealing with, people in their teens or in their early 20s. And so, for them, drawing themselves at 65 or 75 or 85 is like, really old. I'm 54, so I'm thinking if I can live to be 95, what would I look like? And so this is sort of my view. And I did look at the page while I was drawing and myself. And I think I've added wrinkles. But the thing for me is that I would definitely never give up color. So, the whole white hair thing, I'm not going there. I'm going to dye my hair till I'm 110. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try doing a drawing of what you think you are either now or say 30 years from now. And let's just go on the premise that you're, vampiric and that you can live forever, but maybe your face or persona might change over that time. And I'm gonna draw another one, I think, just because it is kind of fun to do. And so try using color. Like, think of Phobos. If you could be any color in the world, what colors would you be? And where would those colors be? Would they be in your skin? Would they be in your hair? Would it be clothing? What would it be? And so I've got, purples and blues and pinks because those are colors I really like. And maybe I'll throw in a red as well. And I'm going to still do it as kind of a contour drawing just because I don't want it to be too precious. I don't want to get too hung up about it being absolutely perfect. And that is one of the things to think about. And I'm not going to lift my pen off the page. And one of the reasons why I want to actually keep it as a contour drawing is for the sake of being able to sort of color it in after the fact. So go ahead and try drawing yourself. And you don't have to be in a contour mode, but it does make for a more interesting sort of game, right? In terms of making yourself be able to follow your whole face. And you can go back over your lines a few times. And I just want you to know, I actually don't have a mirror, so I am kind of doing this from memory because I'm showing you what I'm doing. And depending on what kinds of lines you already have in your face, are there laugh lines near your eyes? Are there lines or wrinkles around where your nose is to your mouth because you've smiled a lot? Are there wrinkles underneath in your neck? And will there be more in 25 or 35 years? Gravity does play a part for sure in us having some things that are saggy, but and also thinking about what kind of facial features or expression will be on your face in this particular view of yourself 30 or 40 years from now. Now, Ed had shared with us this experience of teaching a drawing class and asking them to draw what they thought they would look like at the oldest they could possibly be. And one of the things he mentioned was one of the students made it an incredibly shaky drawing because they were actually thinking of themselves as being that old in the drawing. And so their hand was not as firm and strong, and it was a bit scratchy. And that's actually a really interesting way to think about it, is like, how able do you think you would be to draw yourself if you were 110? Or is your eyesight already going? Is that something that you would have to be doing it literally as a blind contour because your eyesight's so bad now? And how terrible is that? So that's another aspect to kind of think about, is how are you walking in these shoes so completely that you actually take on the persona of what will I be like, in 100 years or in 50 years or 30 years? Quite a few people mentioned that they're happy to be retired because they get to draw or paint or work in their craft or in their garden every day, all day long. And I agree. I think that would be just heavenly to be able to just be making art all day long, for sure. And so then it's a question of, well, what would be in your environment in this picture? Would you have the notion of tchotchkes or objects or jewelry or buttons on your shirt? Or what kinds of, would you be political, or would you be environmental, or would you be, humorous? And so those are other aspects to kind of think about within your picture. The thing that's nice about having something that is in terms of a contour drawing is that then you have all of these shapes that you could potentially be working into in terms of coloring them in, how some of these shadow areas might actually be in shadow. And so, sure, they could be dark, but they don't have to necessarily be, your true skin tone, either now or whatever you think it might be in the future. It could also be how you perceive yourself in terms of, um, your aura, if you want to look at it that way, uh, or how you would like, do you have do you think you're going to still have a very positive energy about yourself? Do you think you'll be very green? Do you think you'll be environmentally friendly? Do you think you'll have a political outlook that you're really red or really blue or really orange? And so all of those aspects could be part of this self, this outward self that you're drawing. And you can color the whole thing in, or you can leave some aspects very muted. They don't have to be super bright. You can certainly be realistic with your color. That's whatever brings you joy and makes you feel like you're being as true to what you think you might be in the future. There's no wrong way to do this. And then the other aspect too is that as we get older, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but yes, wrinkles happen. For me, I have freckles. Some people call it liver spots, but I'm going to say freckles because that's how I look at it. It's all about the sun, not anything else. And so deciding if those are there, or if you're one of those people that says, no, I'm going to get laser surgery and have it removed. So I'm still going to be pristine and perfect as I can be. And so that's another aspect too, is how you choose to be your best self or your older self. It might not be your best self, but it might be your older self.
Lauren, I'm just seeing the time. We have about 40 seconds left.
Okay. So I would love to see what other people have done. So let's put it back into gallery view here. And if you're willing to hold up, oh, Brian, okay. Look at all the fabulous
Oh, look at these.
scratches. I love it. Very neat. All right. Oh, and
Amazing. Look at Linda's. Oh, wow.
oh, we have a lot of Susans here. This is really cool. They're all we share. Okay, Linda, I love the fact that you've got this fabulous light turquoisey color in there. Really nice. That's just lovely. Thanks. Thank you so much for sharing. And Margaret, I love what's going on in that one too. You've got really lovely big cheekbones. That's one.
Oh, just seeing you side by side, Margaret, I can absolutely see the resemblance there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Well done. All right. And let's see. Susan W's got quite a few drawings going on there. I quite like that. And you've got a few other people. Oh, and Priyanka, I like what you've got going on there. So you think you might need glasses, eh? Okay, well, that's fair. And Carol, you look very austere and ready, poised, very poised, ready for whatever's going on in the world. That's great. Well, hopefully all of these views, it's a fun exercise, definitely. And it's a great exercise to do with friends. So if you do have that dinner or icebreaker event, oh, Ashley's got a nice little drawing in there too. Yeah, I like that. Very sensitively done. Well done. So
Thank you so much, folks.
Yeah.
If you care to share your work to a broader public, you can always use the hashtag AGOMake. You can see our colleague behind the scenes has just added it into the chat there. So yeah, thank you all so much for sharing your work with us, sharing your ideas and your stories. And I also want to give a big thank you to Ed Pien too. I think he's still there in the background with limited connectivity. Oh, he's there, yay.
I am here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all for sharing your artwork. It looks amazing. So I'm happy to be part of it. And thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so
Or-
much for joining us, Ed.
And it looks like Natalie's put in the chat 2 links if you wanted to sign up for the November or December Zoom. Now, the November one is super exciting because we're going to be actually in the gallery. We're going to be looking at some prints, and then we're going to do some printmaking in the gallery, but only 25 people can sign up for that. And ideally, you need to be in Toronto. So I know that some people are all the way in Ireland, and that's going to be hard to get here.
amazing.
But we do have another virtual one in December that's going to be a lot of fun too. So
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody. And remember, Ed Pien's exhibition, Present, Past, Future, is on all the way until June. So you've still got lots of time to see it wherever you are in the world. It's worth a trip to Toronto.
Thank you.
Thanks
Okay.
so much,
so
everybody.
much for
Signing off.
joining us. It was a
Thank you
wonderful
all.
day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now.